welcome to our second of 3 candidate forums. Tonight we have the Daphne Mayoral candidates joining us for our candidate forum. It's a little bit different this year, as you know, but we are thrilled to be able to bring this to y'all live on Facebook. We also, this is being aired on WABF right now as well. So welcome to those listeners. We are glad that y'all are joining us. Tonight we have, as I mentioned, our mayor candidates for the city of Daphne. The questions have been composed by the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee, and we will give each of them 3 minutes to introduce themselves, 3 minutes closing, and then 2 minutes to answer the questions. A couple of reminders that I would like to say is our municipal election guides for each of our municipalities, Spanish Fort, Daphne, and Fairhope, is available online at the Eastern Shore Chamber's website, www.eschamber.com. So please get on and take a look, and feel free to share the election guide. That's what it's there for. Again, our final candidate forum will be Fairhope, and that will be next week on Tuesday, August 11th at 6 p.m. Same time, same place. So we hope that you'll join us again for that as well. And just a little side note, the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce does not endorse any specific candidate, but does strive to educate voters on where candidates stand on issues facing the local business community. So please keep that in mind as we proceed. And it's only fitting tonight that this candidate forum is actually on the anniversary of the Voters' Right Act, 55 years ago today. So I think that's pretty cool. And then finally, one other thing, on Election Day, August 25th, please take a picture with you and your voters sticker and share it using the hashtag Baldwin County Votes. So at this time, we will get started, and I would like to turn it over to Lee Webb, who is on our executive board for the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce, and is also past chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee and serves on the committee currently. So Lee, thank you for being here, and I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Christina. I'm Lee Webb. I'm on the board of directors for the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce, as Christina said. We have a list of questions compiled by the Governmental Affairs Committee. These questions have not been disclosed to the candidates prior to this virtual session. And tonight we will be going in order, alphabetically, and then reverse alphabetically. So we will begin with Steve Carey for an opening remark.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Carey here. Before we get going, I just wanted to say thanks to the Chamber for hosting this, and to Christina and Lee for taking care of us for this next hour as we get to talk with everybody. I think it's important that we do get to know our other candidates, and I want to applaud my opponents, both Selena and Robin and Michael Hobbs, who's not here now, but you know, it takes a lot to jump into a race like this, and it's a lot more work than probably most of us thought. So thanks to everybody, and thanks to the Chamber. A little bit about myself. I grew up in a military family. My mom and dad traveled the world, so I had a great opportunity to kind of see a lot of different cities. And I looked at my dad as sort of my inspiration. He was a World War II veteran. You can probably see a lot of his medals behind me, but he was a great man, character and leadership wise. And he and mom did a wonderful job raising my brother and myself. And then I went off to the Air Force Academy for about 4 years, graduated, and then I spent what I call a short 30 years in the Air Force, flying jets, F-16s, F-15s, great people, great experiences, combat. And from those experiences, I had a chance to lead a lot of different organizations, big budgets, large numbers of people. And I really learned what it meant to build a culture and to lead out in front. I was lucky to marry a young lady from Mobile. And when it came time for us to retire, she said, we're going to settle down in Alabama. She was born and raised in Mobile, and so that's why we settled over here in Daphne. Fell in love with this town. It actually, to me, is a lot like when I lived in Italy, a place where you can walk to school, walk to work, go downtown, have a nice meal, and walk home. And that's exactly the charm I wanted when I settled here. When I started my business 12 years ago, I also made the decision to really get involved and participate in the community. I'm on executive boards for both Eastern Shore Chamber and Mobile, head of the Military Affairs Committee over in Mobile. Mayor Stimson asked me to take over the Veterans Commission, on the board of the Red Cross, and Blakely State Park Authority Board. But quite honestly, joining those organizations really taught me the value of getting involved and really trying to shape and make things better. I'm a big believer in faith and family. My 3 children, Clark is my oldest, Camille, who's in college, and Charles, who's currently a senior this year. Wonderful children. My wife does a good job keeping them in line. And we are members of St. James, but I am very excited about running for mayor. I have a strong platform, 5 points that I'll talk about later on. But the important thing about running for mayor is that we're at a point in our city's life where we need the right kind of leadership. And I think I can provide that for you all. So thank you for the opportunity. It really is an honor to run for your mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Certainly appreciate those remarks. Next up, we have Mr. Robin Lejeune.
Also want to say thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event with the craziness of COVID. Using our technology to get this word out is great. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the candidates. It's a difficult thing to put your name out there, and it is a lot of hard work. So thank you to them. Also want to say our thoughts with Michael Hobbs, since he couldn't be here tonight. So wanted to say that. And thank you to everyone out there that's going to be watching. We really appreciate your engagement and wanting to know more about what we're doing and what's going on with the city. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name's Robin Lejeune, and I am asking for your vote for August 25th for mayor of the city of Daphne. Now, I have been a resident. My family's been a resident for 14 years here, married to my beautiful wife, Christina, for over 24 years. We have 3 amazing children. Alexis, Liberty, Xander have all grown up here, gone to our great Daphne public schools. Go Trojans. My son Xander is still at the high school. We're looking forward to seeing how that plays out this coming year. But also, I am the owner of Market by the Bay Seafood, who's had the pleasure of serving this community for over 16 years here in Daphne and also in Fairhope. We have the greatest shrimp po' boy and gumbo in town, so y'all come down and see us anytime. Also, I have been the District 6 City Councilman for the last 7.5 years, almost 8 years. I am currently the City Council President. Now, while serving on the council, I have seen problems that can only be addressed from the top, and that is why I am asking for your vote to be mayor of the city of Daphne. Now, I've got a plan of the 3 E's. It's empower, enhance, expand. We're going to empower our great city employees, our directors, our volunteer groups who have been left behind. Also, we're going to enhance our infrastructure. We've put in place a plan for resurfacing, a 20-year plan of road resurfacing. We've got a plan for sidewalks, something that I'm very proud of, to be able to transition this city into a sidewalk-minded city. When I got on the council in 2012, 2013, there was no plan for sidewalks existing neighborhoods. And my request for sidewalks in Lake Forest changed the city to where now we have budgetary items of up to $250,000 for sidewalks. I'm very proud of that. We're going to work on our aging buildings. And then next, we're going to expand, and I've run out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. And thirdly, we have Miss Selena Vaughn.
Oh, I think I've successfully unmuted myself. Hi, good evening, and thank you too for this opportunity. What weird times we have. I'm glad that there are people more tech savvy than me that have figured out all of this out. And I also want to thank all of our volunteers. Not only are we out there working hard, but here we are in the heat of August, and we all have people out there working so hard for us. I wonder what the chamber can do to change the time of year when we're going to have elections. I mean, in the South, this has got to be a crime. Anyway, my husband, Jim, and I grew up in Pensacola. We've been married 32 years. We've lived in Daphne for 28 years. And when we moved here from Montgomery for jobs, we just had no idea that we were going to fall in love with Daphne and that we would choose to stay here. We'd spend the rest of our days here. And my husband ended up opening a business here when we realized we were not going anywhere. And he now it's an architectural interiors business called Inner Space. And he has 4 offices from Mobile, Fort Walton, Huntsville, and Birmingham. My degree, my bachelor's degree I had a double major in advertising and public relations, a minor in marketing. So my career until I was 40 was in advertising, and I retired from Lewis Communications, which at the time was the largest ad agency in Alabama. So since then, I have devoted my last 14 years working in my community and getting to know my community. Before that, I was going over to Mobile to a job every day in Midtown. And I have just loved all the projects I've worked on, all the people I have met. Let me try to run down them real quickly. I'm very active with the Baldwin County Master Gardeners. They're dedicated to horticulture education and scholarships, and I organize our big annual fundraiser each year, which is down at the Weeks Bay Reserve. I'm also a proud member of the historic Daphne Women's Study Club, which actually incorporated before the city incorporated. And this fine group of women we've been socially active in our community all this time. These ladies are responsible for the first rec center in Daphne, the Nicholson Center, before there was a rec center. They were the original beautification committee before there was one. And they fought to get the library built, and we still are a big supporter of the library today. Currently, I serve as the chair on the Daphne Utilities Board, an awesome organization. We have about 13 million in revenue and 77 employees, and we have a $45 million 10-year capital improvement plan ahead of us. Our utilities, our utilities here in Daphne are held separate from the city organizationally and financially, but we're in close communication with the city, and we always have a council person and a mayor sitting on our board. I'm also chair of the Village Point Foundation Board, a not-for-profit foundation, which for 25 years has been dedicated to securing bayfront property in Daphne for preservation and public access. And I've written grants for boardwalks and historic preservation while on this board. And I'm currently working with the University of South Alabama to see that Village Point gets on the National Historic Registry. And I'm also glad to announce that, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn. Well, we're going to enter into the question phase of the evening. We have 6 questions prepared. I'm happy to reread to any 3 of you that would request it. We ask that you please respond to the question and not to each other. And we'll begin here again with Ms. Vaughn. The first question is, now that the infrastructure is complete on the Daphne Innovation and Science Complex, also known as DISC, how do you plan to attract business to the complex?
That is in the hands of the Industrial Development Board, which is a state legislative organization. And though the city, we are connected via the city, and we certainly give them some lodging tax money and try to support them in other ways, that is left to that board. That is their task.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Lejeune, please. Same question.
Sure. The IDB board is in charge of that property, but the city is working with the IDB board on that. Now, with COVID, it's kind of having to change our thought process on how we're going to use that property to the best of Daphne. It started out as a great way of trying to bring in high-end office space, technology companies to come into Daphne. We give them a great place to start with, where they come in, build the building, and we put the infrastructure in. IDB's done a great job of getting some federal grants in to help pay for that. So it is something that is going to be changing, I think, because of what's gone on with COVID and people staying at home. Now, I'm looking forward to working with IDB and the surrounding areas, but also I'm looking at different ways we can use that property. I've spoken with Wallace Gilberry, who retired from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a local football player. We've got Ryan Anderson I met with over a few weeks ago, took him out to that facility because they were talking about, hey, there's no place for us to train here in our local hometown. And they talked about having a training facility for high-end training for football and all kind of different sports. So I said, hey, well, come out here and take a look at this property out here, and maybe we can put a training facility there. So we need to open up and see some different ways of how we can use that property to best use for our community, and make sure we get the best out of that property, and maybe look outside the box, maybe a training facility and not just high-end office space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. Mr. Carey, same question to you, please.
Sure, that's a question near and dear to my heart. I'm currently the chairman of the Industrial Development Board, and I had a good chance to work with Mayor Haygood and all the councilmen, Robin Lejeune being one of those as well. I took over that process or that board 3 years ago from Tony Fassbender. Pretty contentious in terms of how we got to approval of the DISC project, but once the council approved it, we moved forward. And as the board chair, I'm pretty proud of what we've done over the last 3 years as we took that from a concept of what DISC Innovation and Science Center was intended to the fundraising, to the construction, and to the completion of a project of about $3.2 million that involves some funds from the city, state funds, as well as the EDA, the federal grant. And we finished that project on time, under budget, which is a pretty significant accomplishment in this day and age. And the good part is we now have an infrastructure out there that's unlike anything. Our grant administrator, he said that normally we don't get grants like this for a project that doesn't have structures and buildings already planned. What we've done and presented to Daphne and anybody on the regional or national level that wants to come to this area is we have a ready-made site. All the infrastructure is there, the roads are there, it's ready to be built on, and that accelerates the development of a facility like that approximately 2 to 3 years for clearances and ordinances. So, you know, to Councilman Lejeune's point there is we're now in the marketing phase for this property, and I'm pretty excited. Our hope is that we bring the right kind of companies in and the right kind of businesses that allow us to increase our workforce and bring in white collar type of employment opportunities. We have a large facility there. It is infrastructure. It is ready to go. And I just got a phone call today from Lee Lawson, the Baldwin Economic Development Alliance, and he already has folks that he's entertaining and has been for the last couple years that will hopefully help this project build out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Our second question, and Mr. Lejeune, we're going to start with you here. Growth is not new to the city of Daphne. We've seen exponential growth, which impacts every area of infrastructure. What are your priorities when it comes to ensuring smart growth?
Well, smart growth is the key. Now, we have got large amounts of growth going out our 181 corridor, going south and to the west in the county space. Now, what we want to do is we want to make sure we protect our existing neighborhoods from that growth and revamping those neighborhoods, especially our Old Town Daphne areas where we've seen developers try to come in and do some things that were not, that didn't coincide with our citizens living there. And I've been able to make some votes to protect those citizens. Now, as far as the growth out in the county, what we need to do is work with our planning commission. We've got great director of community development, Troy Strunk, who was hired on, and we created that position just for this problem. And it's a great problem to have. We have a great problem in the growth and people wanting to move here, but we've got to make sure that we keep our charm and consistency so we have a reason why people want to move here. So we're going to empower those, our planning department, to work with our developers, work with our county, work with our schools so we can handle that growth. Also with the infrastructure, but we've got to be able to start looking ahead and making those things work with our developers. One of the issues we have is we have developers that'll come in and say, hey, we want to be in the city. But then if we put too many restrictions or things on them, they can say, well, we'll just put it on the county. That's where we have to work with our county commission and also with our planning department, our planning commission, to make sure that we can make it happen smartly and then protect our existing neighborhoods to keep that charm where people want to still come here. Thank you.
Mr. Lejeune. Ms. Vaughn, same question, please.
Yes, on that eastern side, one thing we really need to think about, we need to plan ahead and not just react. So we need to be thinking about green belts and parks on that side of town. We also need to be trying to get ahead of stormwater control. We've invested so much time and money in stormwater control and stream restorations in the rest of our city. And we need to be going ahead and planning ahead of what we're going to need and applying for grants for that part of the city. And then one of the big issues, you know, when you think that we had like 213 new home permits granted in May, and you think of how that translates into garbage service, our public works is already straining, and we've got to find, not only do we need more boots on the ground, but we've got to find a way to work smarter and help public works. And even just, you know, it's not just about finding a good recycling program, but we've really got to find a way to get ahead of the day-to-day. We are struggling just in our basic services now, and that's only going to increase. And like I said, not only is it the garbage service, and Daphne Utilities, we're actually looking at putting in another well on the east side of town because of the mad amount of growth that we have headed that way. We need to stay ahead of it for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. And Mr. Carey, same question to you, please.
Thank you. You know, when you look at growth, we are a victim of our success. I mean, the traffic that we see, the sprawl that's occurring to the east, those are all a byproduct of a wonderful place to live, and everybody wants to come here. The way we manage that is we really have to develop a long-term comprehensive plan. And the city has a plan in place. It was dated from 2000 to 2020. And it was signed in 2003 with no revisions since then. And that's one of the difficulties in managing a small town as it begins to grow, is if you don't develop a comprehensive plan, and that means dealing with such thing as the development of parks, as was mentioned by Selena. When we don't take the time to develop a plan that affects the east, that affects Old Town Daphne, we will struggle, because what we will do is we will operationally kind of live day to day and solve problems day to day. The only way that we as a city can transition from this Daphne, which right now Daphne is approaching a $30 million budget, 30,000 people and 200 to 300 employees in our city. We are no longer that small town. We want to hold on to our small town charm, but we have to plan for the future, and not just 2 or 3 or 5 years. We have to develop a plan that incorporates all the stakeholders, those that are concerned about redevelopment in downtown, those that want to preserve and connect our parks. All those stakeholders have to be involved in this plan. And if we don't do that, what we end up doing as a small city is we stumble into the future, and we can't stumble into the future. Planning is paramount, whether it's a master plan for downtown, from Village Park all the way to Judges, or whether it's tying all of our neighborhoods in Baldwin County or in the eastern portion of Daphne together. That plan is essential. And as we do that, we have to strengthen our land use ordinances so that between our cities and between our county, we are consistent with how we let developers build.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. And Mr. Carey, we're going to start with you on question 3 here. What is your plan for coordinating the growth in Daphne with the Baldwin County Board of Education in order to make sure that we have the space in the schools to accommodate the new growth and development?
So that's a great segue. It kind of ties into really our last question, and I'll kind of go back to the point that we have to have a plan that's more current than 2003. We have to have a plan that's long-term. And then when I mentioned earlier about bringing the stakeholders into play, those stakeholders do involve the builders and developers. They involve the residents of those different subdivisions that we have. They involve the guardians of Old Town Daphne. all those stakeholders that really are concerned about how we are going to grow, they need to be at the table. You know, I'll give kudos to Mayor Dane Haygood in terms of the Architect Southwest consultation firm that came in here last year, provided a study and some advice on that. And that was a starting point. It brought people to the table. We talked about a lot of ideas, and I was involved in that. But going forward, we have to bring developers, we have to bring residents, we have to bring designers and architects together so that we just don't stumble into the development phase out east, or we just don't haphazardly make adjustments to the charm that we love here downtown. If we can build that master plan, if we can bring everybody to the table, I think our citizens will be proud. And as I put in a lot of my texts and emails, hashtag Daphne Pride, we have got to build more pride, not just in Old Town, but in the entire city. And we do that with a solid long-term plan.
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Sure.
Mr. Lejeune, same question to you.
Yeah, could you repeat the question for me one more time? Thank you.
Absolutely. What is your plan for coordinating the growth in Daphne and, well, excuse me, with the Baldwin County Board of Education in order to make sure that we have the space in the schools to accommodate the new growth and development?
Well, and that is key, is working with the Board of Education. My kids being in the Daphne Public Schools, I've seen the growth. I've seen the addition to the middle school. We've seen the additions that are going on, and the addition of the new Belfour School. So it is paramount that we do work with them. Now, we have working progress on a comprehensive plan. The last couple of years, we have put money in the budget for this comprehensive plan. Right now, we have $80,000 sitting there to work with the comprehensive plan. They use the census data, so we're waiting for some of that data to come in. Our planning department is in charge of that. Adrian Jones has already started working on that. So we've started that process of working that comprehensive plan. That plan of 2003, one of the big things on that plan was sewering the entire city of Daphne. Well, we did that. We looked at that plan, we've used that plan, and we've continued to work on that plan. Now it is time for a new plan, but we've already jumped ahead and started working on that. We've got the money sitting there. We've got the people in place to make that plan happen. It's a year-long process to do that plan, but we also need those that data. Now, back to the schooling, my kids have seen, we've grown up in this massive growth that we've had. Now, one of the issues is we've got our school board representative, Andrea, is doing a great job, but she also represents two areas of Daphne and Spanish Fort. So we have to do a better job of communicating with our schools, communicating with the Board of Education. I've talked to Eddie Tyler, and working forward with this comprehensive plan that you're already working towards to make things and work with the schools, because it is the growth of the schools is tremendous. It's a lot of pressure on the city, and it's a lot of pressure on our Baldwin County School Board, and we will work together to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. Ms. Vaughn, same question to you, please.
I think it's interesting that one of the historic things that Daphne is known for was the normal school. So many people moved here, and Daphne grew from the fact that this is where you came for that level of education. And I think people are still moving here today because of our schools, and we certainly don't want to let that slip, and we would like to get ahead and be leaders in that. And everything the city can do to support the schools, they will. You know, we've had studies done twice in the last 20 years that show us that participating in the existing school system is what we need to do, as opposed to breaking away. And I too feel like we need to keep the communication open and see what we can do to help the school system. But whatever their problems are, let's fix what's broken there. I don't think ever breaking away would be what we would need to do. And then the best thing that we can do is just keep our infrastructure and our like we were talking about the planning. We're fixing to get some new people in office, both in the council and the mayor's office, and we do have to really look at those plans and our long-term solutions, or have to include our community and listening to them. But I can't imagine that the city of Daphne would ever not support the great Baldwin County education system.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Question 4, we will start with Mr. Lejeune. Again, in relation to schools. Do you see a need to increase property taxes, much like Spanish Fort and Fairhope have, in order to financially supplement the Daphne school system? Why or why not?
Well, what we've got is with we've gotten to see, and we want to wait and see how that works for Fairhope and Spanish Fort. We are going to be bringing this to the citizens. It is something that they will vote on. Now, look, we have different opportunities on how we can do this. It doesn't have to be 3 mil like Spanish Fort and Fairhope. It doesn't have to be for the same time period. But one of the interesting things is we need to reach out to our schools and say, okay, where are your needs? Now, we implemented a new volunteer group, our education advisory committee, a couple of years ago. Now, last year, we gave them $100,000 to go to the schools. What are some of the needs? Give them that money and do that. We also have been very active with seeds. We give them $40,000 to spread out to the schools. We also the city also sends our crews to go and work on fields, things of that when there's a need. So yes, the city is very active, and we've been very willing participants to help our schools because they are most important in our kids growing up in those schools. My kids have all gone there, graduated from Daphne, and my son is currently there now. So I know that the need is there. Now it's up to our citizens to make that decision. Is it something that they want to do? And we hope that they will make the decision, but we can work a plan out that makes everyone happy. Whether it's a 1 mil, a 2 mil, whether it's a 5-year plan, but we need our schools to let us know what their needs are. And we need to be open because it possibly used for our arts, band, even some athletics where there is a major need. So we're going to move this forward and have our citizens input, and then they're going to vote on it. And hopefully they'll come up with a great plan that everybody can agree on. We can get this passed and help fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. Ms. Vaughn, same question to you, please.
Yes, that has got to be left up to the voters. But one of the things we have to do is really identify exactly how that money is going to be spent. I think the many times in the past when it's been voted down, a lot of citizens just didn't feel like there was a lot of accountability. And we do have a need, and we definitely need to present not only how much, but exactly, we need all that community input on how it should be spent, not just put it before them to vote yes or no. And the more community involvement you have, and the longer, the more research you have into that and input, the bigger ability that's going to be passed. And that's what we need to focus on, is that process. We really need to focus some time and get that communication out and get that feedback in before that goes up for vote.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. And Mr. Carey, same question to you, please.
Well, like everybody in this forum right now, I'm 100% pro-education. I think we would be foolhardy to think that education is not a foundation for a city and a better country. I've raised 3 children. We've participated in the public and private systems. I understand the value of a safe school environment with the proper resources and the properly trained teachers to give our children that knowledge to then become good citizens. But I will tell you, as a city, I think we need to be a little bit bolder than what we have been. I think it's time for us as Daphne, the largest city in Baldwin County, to really step out and be that municipality that leads Baldwin County, that sets the example for other cities. There's really, and we've talked a little bit around it today, there's 3 options that we have as a city. We can budget support to seeds. We can budget support directly to the schools, which we've done. And we've provided, as Robin Lejeune just said, significant funds. We can either focus on that, or we can look at potentially forming a separate school district. And I agree with Selena Vaughn that I think a separate school district is impractical for us right now based on size and economies of scale. And then the other option is a special assessment. And that is something that the citizens have to decide upon. Whether you have children in the schools or whether you don't have children in schools, we have to make an investment in the future of all of our 6 schools. I've been to the advisory meeting. I've met all 6 principals. This last week, I met with John Ellis on site at our new school. And if you want to see an amazing facility, you need to go to that school. I'm meeting with W.J. Carroll's principal next week. And my goal is to better understand the needs of our schools, to partner with the advisory committee so that we can then sit down as a city government, as a council, and hopefully say, here are the needs of our schools, how best to serve them. Whether it's a line item budget or whether it's a special assessment tax, those are options that our citizens will get to decide upon. But bottom line, education is the foundation, and all of us pro-education know that we need to do more than what we've been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. We're going to question 5 here, and we start with Ms. Vaughn. How do you plan to manage and direct the city's economic growth to attract quality industry while maintaining the quality of life and natural environment?
Well, one of the things that I am really excited about doing is I think that we need to, I call it reclaiming Hamburger Hill, which is when you come north from I-10 down 98, we have for so long overlooked one of our greatest assets, the Bayfront. And we have several sort of derelict businesses there, and things are going down. And when you can envision what it would be like if we were to add a series of scenic overlooks, boardwalks, sidewalks, really reinvent that area, take advantage of that bayfront, both for public access and for views. Just imagine what that would do for the economy of Daphne. And I think that we need to look at both sides of 98 there, our big business district, and look at lighting and signs and all kinds of things that we could do off of those service roads to each side to greatly improve that area and draw people in. And I think that that would connect very well as you go south into what the Downtown Redevelopment Authority is trying to do, working from the south north on Main Street. We just have a great opportunity that we have just let it sit there for so long. But it's time for us to do something. And it'll be huge for Daphne.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Mr. Carey, same question to you, please.
So I'll echo what Selena just said there. Quite honestly, this goes back to the fact that we just need a plan. There's lots of ideas. There's great potential. When you think about the parks we have alone, there's over 20 different types of parks we've got. Some are in great shape. Some need some more attention. When you look at our downtown area, that is a jewel of Daphne. That is one of those areas all the way from Village Park and Village Point and Bayfront all the way down to Judges that if we do it smartly, we can hold on to that wonderful charm and we can enhance it. But the only way we'll be successful is if we build a master plan on all these aspects, whether it's tying our communities out east together, whether it's enhancing our parks, and really letting our citizens know that they have an opportunity to take a long walk in Lake Forest. I was there this weekend with one of our residents in Lake Forest, and I walked through the Frisbee golf course there, the 9 holes that they had, and it was unbelievable. I mean, great walkways, just beautiful rolling hills. And my bet is a lot of our citizens don't really understand how lucky we are and how many benefits we have in this area. That's our obligation as a city to communicate that. But the way we improve it is we build a long-term master plan, whether it's the jewel of Downtown Redevelopment Authority, whether it's tying all of our neighborhoods together and ensuring that we manage that development. All this hinges on the most important thing is a viable plan that's been approved, not one that we've talked about for years. And we may have money on the table for plans, but we need a hard action plan that people can go to. And as a city, we need to be graded on that. One of the things that I will do as your mayor is I will annually create a state of the city address, and I'm going to grade ourselves. We'll have a plan in place in the first year, and we will grade ourselves on each aspect of that plan, whether it's parks, whether it's sprawl, whether it's downtown redevelopment, whatever we happen to do, we will grade ourselves, and the citizens will get to vote and judge us as elected officials.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. And Mr. Lejeune, same question to you, please.
Yeah, Mr. Webb, I'm sorry. Would you please repeat the question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How do you plan to manage and direct the city's economic growth to attract quality industry while maintaining the quality of life and natural environment?
Well, our economic growth has been great. We have luckily been in a bubble on the Eastern Shore where the amount of people wanting to move here has cause this economic growth for us. Even with the COVID situation, which with my business as a restaurant has hurt us and hurt other restaurants and other businesses, the city of Daphne's tax revenues has stayed the same from last year. We didn't have a huge loss because of the big box stores and the amount of growth of people moving here. So we have kind of been in this economic bubble here on the Eastern Shore, which is great. Now, it also goes to the DISC project. What can we do there? Do we stick with the plan and try to bring in tech companies? Yeah, we want to do that. But hey, we also have to look outside the box, figure out a way how we can use that to bring in different types of companies, whether it's universities that can use that space next to the high school, whether it's our possible training center, things of that nature. So that'll bring in economic growth. But we are a community, a neighborhood community, with Lake Forest being the largest neighborhood in the area, and the Old Town Daphne, the charm of Old Town Daphne. That's why people want to come here. And I appreciate the parks and bringing up the parks, because the Daphne Central Park, it was Ron Scott and myself taking the old Lake 9 and making that a park. We have done Gator Boardwalk while I've been on the council. We've done a boat ramp for boat access, public boat access here in Daphne when we didn't have one. We have done Joe Louis Patrick Park renovations in our Daphmont area. We've built a state-of-the-art sports complex that is bringing teams from all over to our community, and they see what we've done. We have done the tennis center down at Lot Park and pickleball center. And so we've done those things to bring people to this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. Last question of the night begins with Mr. Carey. Please explain how your style of leadership will engage and unite the council, city departments, and community, as well as opening lines of communication to the community at large.
That's a great question, and I'm sure one that all three of us will enjoy answering. I bring a special set of skills to leadership, and I'm not a believer in managing. I'm more a believer in leading people. I think the city of Daphne is a healthy town. We've got a good fiscal situation. However, I think we need to build a stronger culture with our employees within the city of Daphne. And what we need to take advantage of are those individuals, men and women, those who have been working out in the trenches, those folks that have great ideas, but sometimes those ideas don't take traction. We need to rely on our employees, rely on our city employees, and help them take these ideas and bring them to fruition. Likewise, in terms of partnership with the council, I think we need to build a better bridge between the mayor and the council. It's important that we trust each other. It's important that we have a relationship where when we disagree, we just disagree. But the important thing for all of us is that when we are at opposite ends of the spectrum, is we find a way to stay at the table and we find a way to solve problems. My style of leadership is motivational. My style of leadership is out and about. I'm a numbers guy. I want to pay attention to efficiencies and profitabilities. And I run my business just the way I ran my fighter squadron. It's about efficiencies, it's about processes, and it's about listening to your people, letting them come up with the ideas, and then honestly delegating that so that they can then run with it. I told one of my old bosses a long time ago, is my job is to let people run hard and not hurt themselves. I want to put my hand on their collar if they're too close to the edge and pull them back. But I want our employees, I want the ideas from our citizens. I want everybody running at full speed with great ideas and initiatives. And then we, as a council with the mayor, we're going to pull all those ideas together and hopefully make this city one of the shining cities in Baldwin County. As the 8th fastest growing city, we have to change the way we lead, and we have to change the way we plan for us to be a successful, vibrant, and wonderful town.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Mr. Lejeune, same question to you, please.
Yes, over my 7.5 years, almost 8 years being on the council, I have a unique view of how this works and a relationship with our great directors, our city employees. They have come to me over many years with problems, issues, and we have been able to work together, solve those issues, put plans in place. The amount of things that this city has been able to do in the last 8 years is tremendous. State-of-the-art sports complex, We've got a tennis center, pickleball center. When I started on the council and went to recreation and said, our recreation board, and said, hey, we need to do better as the largest city in Baldwin County. I went to Spirit Park with my daughter who played softball for Daphne City Rec League, and they had to share space with the men's softball at Triumph. And we went to Spirit Park and saw what Spanish Fort did. And I said, wait a minute, we're the largest city. We can do better. And so we were able to do that, working together. Now, from the council, I understand the council's position. They're in charge of money and they're in charge of property. Now, the mayor is in charge of operations. And I've seen the issues that we need to work on because we've got great directors, great employees that need to be let go to do their job. And they'll be able to do it efficiently, quickly, and under budget. And I have built those relationships over these years, volunteer groups with our directors, with our employees. So I'll be able to take my experiences and our relationship that's already built and right off the bat move forward. Now, we do need better communication between the mayor's office and the city council, and also with our community. Now, the mayor's office and operations runs our marketing and our employees that get that information out. So that is my number one goal, is to make sure we get that information out by working with the city council, because I've been there, and knowing their role, and then moving forward, and we're going to communicate with our citizens better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. Lastly, Ms. Vaughn, same question to you, please.
Yes, well, I've been involved with the city for 14 years, and I was just thinking, so 5 of our 7 council seats are uncontested. So I already have a really good relationship, good communication with the council. And I think it's so important to bring a sense of diplomacy and a spirit of cooperation from the mayor's office. We don't want to be in the news. There isn't any reason in the world why we can't all work together. And I too have known so many city employees and worked with the department heads over the years, serving on the committees. I think that we have some really great people. I think that we have bypassed a lot of processes. There's a lot of ways that we can work smarter, empowering our really good people to work, to step up and to get those ideas. Like one thing, we have a really antiquated animal shelter, and we have somebody in our staff who has really investigated that and has a lot of great ideas, and we need to get that done. That should have already have been done. Also, we need to do better at communicating with the citizens. Facebook just doesn't get it. We've got to look at some software. We've got to look at some ways to communicate to our citizens. We can even do better with simple things like our website page, where citizens they can't attend all of the meetings that us volunteers come to, but if they could just access the minutes a little bit better and be able to see what's happening. There are so many different ways that we can improve communication. But the spirit of all working together, we have so many great volunteer groups and employees. I'm really excited.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Well, that concludes the question and answer portion of the segment tonight. We will finalize with closing statements, and first up is Ms. Vaughn.
Well, again, I really appreciate this online event tonight, because we're having to get very creative in how we talk to people. Providing this venue, allowing us to reach out to voters. I just love Daphne, and I know our best days are ahead. We enjoy such a great quality of life here on the Eastern Shore. And as long as we keep our hands on the wheel during this time of growth, there is no reason why we can't grow our businesses, increase our residents, and not only maintain our quality of life, but we can really add to that quality of life, like I was talking about with our long overlooked asset, the Bay. There's so many things, so many areas we have where we can improve, and growth doesn't have to slow us down. I mean, we don't have to get bogged down in the day-to-day. We just need to get smarter with our processes. We probably will need some more boots on the ground in areas like in our public works department. And we very much need to come together, but the council and the mayor, we need a period of solidarity where we work together. We don't have time. We certainly don't want to waste money. We just need to work together smoothly and engage the community as much as we can. We need to increase more people on our volunteer boards and our committees, because we want this to be, we want the citizens involved. We want them to make this town what they want it to be.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Closing remarks, Mr. Lejeune.
Yeah, thank you again, Chamber, for putting this event on. Thank you for everyone watching. Thank the other candidates. We're very lucky here in this area. But what I want to say is I have been a leader in this community. The amount of things that we've been able to do over the last 8 years, working with the mayor's office, working with our citizens, finding those problems, we have done amazing things here in this community. The Daphne Sports Complex, state-of-the-art complex, baseball, softball, our tennis center, when we only had 2 tennis courts here in the city for the longest time that were not even regulation side. We have worked with our citizens. The pickleball group came to us and they said, hey, this is something we need. And we've never heard of pickleball. We worked with them and now we have a state-of-the-art tennis center and pickleball center there downtown that really highlights our downtown. We have started the process of our Bayfront streetscape. And within the next 2 weeks, Riviera Utilities is going to start moving the utilities underground. That's going to be a great gateway to our pier. The next phase is a pier extension. The next phase after that is an amphitheater. So we've done amazing things working together. We are continuing to do. We've got the plans in place. Now, my job as mayor is going to make sure that everyone knows what those plans are and get the communication out there. But we have done amazing things over these last years. We've done things that people said you can't do. You can't put sidewalks in Lake Forest. You can't build a recreation center. And we've done them working together. Now, I have the leadership and the knowledge, the relationships with our great directors to let them loose and do their job. And I know the difficulties that we've had, and we're going to move forward and make those things great for our great city of Daphne. And I'm asking for your vote on August 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lejeune. And lastly, closing remarks from Mr. Carey.
Thank you, and thanks to all the speakers today. This has been an enjoyable experience. But I'll tell you, as a city, we're at a different juncture. We're at a point where we cannot just continue to do business the way we've done it. And yes, we have done some wonderful things. We've built some incredible recreational facilities. Some incredible organizations have volunteered to help move these developments forward. But what we haven't done is we have not mapped out our plan for 5, 10, 15 years. We are relying on our volunteers. We're relying on the leadership of a strong council to come up with ideas short-term and build them. The difference here is that it is much harder work with where the city of Daphne sits now to move forward for the next 10 to 15 years. 10 years, 15 years ago, when we had our original plan, it was a much smaller town. The dynamics were much easier to manage. You now need someone in leadership role that has managed big organizations, that has handled multi-million-dollar budgets, that has been in charge of hundreds of people, and knows how to tie and unify and provide more solidarity with our citizens. There are many aspects of doing that. You can be inspirational, but you also have to have the experience of how to handle those issues and how to run those kind of organizations. I have that experience. I've demonstrated that with my 30-year career at a national level in the military. I've taken a small business here and been successful with it. And plus with my involvement on a lot of community boards, we've changed the landscape. But for the city of Daphne to move forward for the next 10 years, we need to build a sense of pride in our city. And we love Daphne, we all do. But I think there's so much more we can do with what we have. And the only way that's going to come about is we have to rely on the talent of our citizens and our employees at city level. But we also have to orchestrate a plan that brings it all together. It's not just as simple as building a new baseball park or as simple as building something down at the Bay Point there, Village Point. We have to tie all this together. And if we fail to do that, we will then be the kind of city that's piecemealed together. And that's not what we want. We want our pride to grow, hashtag Daphne Pride. We want all of us to love Daphne for the next 10 or 20 years when our kids come back home. And ultimately, my goal is to create a city that has that charm that we love, that jewel of downtown Daphne, that my kids, who some of them live in Nashville, some of them are getting ready to graduate from high school, I want them to come home to Daphne. I want them to fall in love with this town. And the only way we're going to do that is if we plan as a team with all the stakeholders, and it will not be easy. It will be difficult. My experience in negotiating with foreign countries will know how to bring all these diverse organizations and ideas together to then chart a path so that the council can pick the right path for all of us. I'm happy to be and very much enjoyed this experience.
Well, thank you, Mr. Carey, and thank you to all the candidates. This concludes the Daphne Mayoral Candidate Forum, and please check out the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. This will be recorded and can be accessed anytime where there's an internet connection. Christina, any last remarks?
We're good. Thank y'all very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Great.
Hashtag Daphne Pride.